Once upon a time, there lived a girl who lived in the city with her aunt. Her name was Uju, and her mother died when she was only 4 years of age. After her mother's death, Uju had no other option but to live with her mother's half-sister, Na. At first, everyone believed that Uju would be better off living with her auntie Na, who was her only family alive. But Na despised her with all of her heart. She saw no reason why she would love her half-sister's daughter when she had a daughter of her own. Her daughter, Kidera, was only a few years older than Uju, and Na loved her deeply and treated her like a princess. However, when it came to Uju, Na saw no reason to show love or kindness. She believed Uju was a burden that had been forced on her by circumstances. So while Kidera lived like royalty, Uju was treated like a maid. She cooked, cleaned, washed clothes, and served everyone in the house. She wasn't allowed to eat with them. She wasn't even allowed to call Na mommy like her cousin did. To the outside world, it looked like Uju was part of a happy family. But inside the house, she was nothing more than a servant. Na never enrolled her in school. She saw no reason why Uju should attend school when there were chores for her to do. Whilst her daughter left for school every morning, Na gave Uju a long list of chores to do. Uju was not permitted to rest in the house. Her auntie Na had a whistle that she used to summon her like a dog. Even if Uju sat down for a moment to catch her breath, she would hear the sharp sound of the whistle coming from her auntie's room. One day, as she was running up the stairs to answer the whistle, she lost her balance and fell from the top of the stairs. Luckily, all she sustained were some bruises on her legs, and her auntie, instead of showing concern, scolded her bitterly. "You're lucky it didn't break your neck," Na said as she threw some dirty clothes at Uju, ordering her to wash them clean. "I'll be traveling to the village tomorrow for a burial. Here are the things I would want you to do before I return," she said as she handed Uju a long list of chores to do. "Make sure she doesn't rest until everything on this list is done," Na said to her daughter Kidera, handing her a copy of the list of chores that she had already given to Uju. "She's not here to relax, so keep an eye on her and don't be soft," she said to her daughter, who shook her head eagerly with a smirk on her lips. "Don't worry, Mummy. I'll handle her," she said as her mother gave her a pat on the back. The next morning, Na traveled, and as soon as the front door shut closed, Chidera's reign of terror began. She grabbed the list and read it out loud, deliberately adding her own wicked spin to it. "Mop the whole house twice, wash all the curtains, clean all the windows, then scrub the toilets. And if you dare sit down or take a break, you know what I'll do," she said as she held up her phone. Uju did not respond. She simply nodded her head and got right to work. But Kidera did not stop there. She followed her everywhere like a shadow, shouting at her, mocking her, and throwing things around just to make Uju clean all over again. By late afternoon, Uju was already exhausted. Her body was completely soaked in sweat as her hands ached badly from scrubbing. "Why are you so slow?" Kidera yelled out angrily at Uju, who ignored her completely as she continued to clean. When Uju did not respond, Kidera stormed forward and slapped her across the face, a hot, sharp, and loud slap. The world stood still for a moment as Uju stood there trembling, not from fear, but from rage. She had been beaten, insulted, and treated like nothing for years, but something inside her snapped in that moment. She grabbed Kidera by the shoulders, anger surging through her body as she held herself back from punching her across the face. Kidera could not believe her eyes. "You want to beat me, right? You have now grown wings," she said angrily to Uju, who could not hold back her anger anymore. "I wish you would just die," Uju said angrily to Kidera, who laughed in her face and threatened to tell her mother what Uju had just said. "You want me dead, right? Wait till my mother gets back. She will kill you even before you even think of lifting a finger to harm me." Uju, in that moment, knew that she was in hot soup. She tried pleading with Kidera for forgiveness, but Kidera stormed off to her room and slammed her door behind her. Uju stood there frozen, her chest heaving from a storm of emotions. She never meant it. The words just slipped out of her mouth in anger, but she knew that Kidera would never let it go. The tension in the house was so overwhelming. Uju sat up in the kitchen, exhausted but unable to sleep. She dreaded what would happen in the morning when her Aunt Na returned. The house was completely quiet, and Uju lay down on the floor to sleep. She had never been this exhausted in her life. Her cousin Kidera turned out to be worse than her mother Na. When morning came, Uju decided to apologize to Kidera one more time. She approached her door and knocked, but Kidera did not respond. Uju pushed open the door and was confronted with the most horrifying sight. Kidera laid there lifeless. All efforts by Uju to resuscitate her proved futile, as her body had already grown cold. Uju stood there shaking, her mind racing back to the fact that she wished that Kidera would die. "I didn't mean it," she said repeatedly, tears pouring down her eyes as her auntie Na walked in on her, hearing all that she was saying. "What did you do to my daughter?" Na yelled out angrily to Uju, who tried to explain why she said what she said, but Na was not willing to listen. "You've killed my daughter, you witch," she said aloud as neighbors all came running in. Within minutes, the house was full with neighbors who whispered and accused Uju of killing her cousin Kidera. "We heard her screaming yesterday that she wished her cousin would die," one of the neighbors said, pointing an accusing finger at Uju, who she called a murderer. Uju sat on the floor trembling, unable to say a word. The room felt like it was closing in on her, the walls, the whispers, the pointing of fingers. It was way too much for her to bear. Her Aunt Na knelt over her daughter's body, screaming as she rocked back and forth in agony. My baby, she killed my baby," Na said as the police walked into the scene to arrest Uju. She was taken away in handcuffs, and the neighbors could not stop pointing accusing fingers at her. Her eyes were now swollen from crying, and her heart broken in a way that words could not describe. Uju did not understand what had happened. All she knew was that her life had finally taken a turn for the worst. She arrived at the station and sat quietly as the officers asked her questions that she had no answers to. "How did you kill her?" they asked Uju, who could only shake her head, whispering over and over that she did not kill her. "I didn't kill her. I swear I didn't," Uju said. But the officers found it hard to believe. "How do you expect us to believe you when you wished her dead?" one of the officers asked Uju, who began to regret why she said what she said. Uju buried her face in her hands. She could not believe all that was happening. Her auntie now was hellbent on seeing her suffer. She made some calls, and Uju was remanded in prison for murder. Days passed, and the city was now abuzz with rumors about the wicked orphan who murdered her own cousin and her poor auntie who took her in and was repaid with such evil. Uju sat in her prison cell surrounded by hardened criminals. She had never been this terrified in her entire life. She was the youngest there, and no one seemed to care about her until Shaddai came along. Shaddai was a woman who didn't need to raise her voice to command respect. The moment she walked into the cell block, the entire place fell silent. She was infamous, not just because she was on death row, but because no one crossed her and got away with it. Uju noticed that the first day she arrived but kept her distance like the others. She had no idea that soon her path would cross with that of Shaddai. It all began one morning when a group of older inmates tried to intimidate Uju and steal her food. Shaddai stepped in to stop them. "That girl is with me," Shaddai said coldly, her face cutting through the chaos as everyone backed off from her. She walked up to Uju and encouraged her to eat. "No one will ever touch you as long as you are with me," she said to Uju, who thanked her for what she did. As she watched Uju eat, she asked to know her story, and Uju narrated everything to her. Shaddai could see how broken Uju looked. She listened in silence, her face expressionless as her eyes burned with quiet fury. When Uju finished speaking, Shaddai took a deep breath and said to her, "They've done to you what the world does to girls like us. Punish us for surviving. You didn't kill your cousin, and you don't deserve to be here with us," she said to Uju, who she took under her wing. She gave her protection in prison, and for the first time in years, Uju felt something that she hadn't felt in years: safety. And Shaddai did not stop at just providing protection. She was a highly connected woman whose father was a known politician. Shaddai killed her own father for trying to have his way with her daughter, the same way he did to Shaddai for so many years. Shaddai turned herself in after what she did to her father. She could not sit back and watch her daughter go through all that she went through. Seeing Uju, who was a few years older than her daughter, locked up in prison for a crime that she did not commit. Shaddai decided to do something about it. She was more than a protector. She was also a woman shaped by pain. She opened up to Uju in the quiet hours of the night, telling her the truth about her past. Not for pity, but so Uju would understand where her strength could come from. I let my silence destroy me for far too long until I broke. But you still have your life in front of you, she said to Uju, who thanked her for all that she had done for her. From behind bars, Shade knew that she still had powerful contacts, loyal friends, and allies who respected her and were willing to do her favors. That very night, Shade called in a favor through her lawyer, and within a week, new evidence began to emerge. A neighbor's son who had remained quiet out of fear came forward after being contacted by one of Shaddai's people. He had seen Kidera sneaking out of her house late that night before her death. The young man revealed that Kidera was later dropped off at home by a boy who was known for peddling drugs in the neighborhood. She looked high and wasted when he dropped her off, and the young man could tell that she was on drugs. With the new revelation, Shaddai, through her lawyers, pushed for an autopsy to be carried out. The results confirmed what Uju had always feared. Kidera had died from a drug overdose. There were no signs of physical assault, no evidence of struggle, and no connection to Uju whatsoever. The toxicology report showed a dangerous mix of pills and alcohol in Chidera's bloodstream, enough to shut down her system while she slept. Shaddai's lawyer did not stop there. He retrieved text messages from Chidera's phone, conversations with the same drug dealer who dropped her off that night, revealing that Kidera sent him a text complaining about the drug that he gave to her. The pieces of the puzzle were all there, and the evidence was so overwhelming. Uju was wrongly accused for a crime that she did not commit. Her auntie Na knew of her daughter's drug addiction, but had kept it hidden from everyone to protect her family's reputation. So when Kidera died, she found the perfect scapegoat in Uju, the orphan girl whom nobody would fight for. But now the truth could no longer be hidden. The autopsy result as well as the text messages were presented in court, and the judge dismissed all charges against Uju. She was declared innocent and released from prison immediately. Her name was finally cleared, but the pain of all that she had endured could not be easily erased. Uju was finally released, but she didn't walk out alone. Shaddai had one last request for her. In their final conversation, Shaddai stood in her prison cell, looking out through the bars. Her voice was softer than usual. I have a daughter, Uju. Her name is Bimbo. She's only 12, and she's everything I wasn't allowed to be when I was her age: smart, kind, and curious. I don't want her to grow up in shame or lost in the shadows of what I did. Uju's eyes filled with tears as she looked Shaddai in the eyes. Take care of her, Uju. Be her sister, not because you owe me, but because I believe that you'll protect her future like someone should have protected yours. I will, Uju whispered, promising to protect and always be there for Bimbo. When Uju walked out of the prison gate, Bimbo was there waiting with their lawyer. Her mother, Shaddai, had already made arrangements for them to meet. She even went further to include Uju in her will, leaving several properties and money in her name. Uju and Bimbo became inseparable. They were like sisters who, although brought together by tragedy, found healing in each other's presence. Uju enrolled Bimbo into a top private school and made it her life's mission to give Bimbo the kind of childhood neither she nor Shaddai ever had. Together, they moved into one of the quiet mansions that Shaddai had left behind, where, for the first time in her life, Uju had her own room, her own bed, and her own freedom. She also went back to school, determined to make something meaningful of her life, not just for herself, but for Bimbo and her mother, Shaddai. Miles away, however, in the same city, Na's world was falling apart. The day Uju walked free, the media erupted. News of the wrongful imprisonment spread like wildfire. The truth about Chidera's drug addiction, Na's cover-up, and her evil actions towards Uju came to the limelight. The neighbors who once whispered in her defense now turned their backs on her. No one wanted to associate with the woman who had thrown an innocent girl to the wolves to save her image. Na lived in isolation. The house that was once filled with laughter and harsh commands was now cold and empty. She spent her nights sitting on the floor of Chidera's room, hugging her daughter's picture and regretting every cruel thing that she ever said and did to Uju. Every day she prayed for forgiveness, but Uju never returned to see her, not out of spite, but because Uju learned the hard way that peace sometimes meant closing certain doors forever. She sent a note, however, to tell her Auntie Na that she had forgiven her, and that was the last time Na ever heard from Uju. That was how Na lived the remainder of her life, in regret, wishing that she could turn back the hands of time to undo all her wrongs and bring her daughter back to life. The lesson we learned from this story is that we should be kind to the people around us. Never underestimate the pain someone may be carrying in silence, and never use your power or position to oppress those who have no one to fight for them. Life is unpredictable, and the people we despise today may become the very ones who rise tomorrow. Forgiveness is powerful, but regret is a bitter companion. Let us choose love over cruelty, truth over appearances, and justice over silence, because in the end, it is not what the world says about us that defines us, but the choices we make when no one is watching. I hope you enjoyed the story.